This week on the Erotic Awakening Podcast, episode 737, getting started in the BDSM, grief and AI scripts. Welcome to Erotic Awakening, an exploration of all things erotic. If you are offended by adult topics or prohibited by law, it's recommended you stop listening right now. And per usual, first, I'd like to thank the amazing patrons of Erotic Awakening. You have kept and continue to keep this show and educational work alive and thriving. So a special welcome to our newest supporters, Lola, TT, Robin, and Susan. If you'd like to be a part of the team that supports this continuing work, head over to patreon.com/Erotic Awakening and sign up today. Hi, everyone. I'm Dawn, and I'm here this week to continue the conversations on power exchange, polyamory, sacred sexuality, and everything in between. All right. Well, I had hoped to have an interview with the Submissive Retreat that I was just on, but that is going to have to come later. The energy was so great there, I didn't want to interrupt it by interviewing people for the podcast. It was amazing, and we'll talk about it later. So, yeah, oh my God, such a good time. You know what? Maybe I should have done the show on drop, event drop, and scene drop, and all those sorts of things. I will add that to my notes to get done later. But instead, tonight we are going to be talking about how to get started in BDSM. So, during the submissive retreat that I was just on, there were four of us that were sitting on the couch, and each one of us had over 25 years as collared submissives, collared slaves. So four of us, over 20 years. And then there were a few more that were like at 6, 7, 8 years. And then there was two people that were brand spanking new, pun intended. And they were asking, how do you get started in BDSM? Like I said, they were just starting to figure out how to figure things out. And like we told them, those of us that had so much time in, like we told them, we didn't have the resources that everybody has now. So our stories aren't really going to be relevant. But then again, maybe they are. So I know for me, it started with books. And when I told her that, I said, mine started with books. And she said, well, mine did too, 50 Shades of Grey. And usually when people say that, there's this big laugh or rolling of the eyes or something like that, because the response usually is, well, that's not reflective of real life. So there was some eye rolling when this was said. And I had to butt in and go, the books I started with, they're not based on reality either. I started with The Claiming of Sleeping Beauty, not reality. The Marketplace series, not reality, though I would love it to be. And The Story of O, again, not reality, or almost all of us, if not all of us. It's a fantasy trip, and it still caused feelings, and it still made me want to figure out how to put some of that into my life. So it started with books. And then for me, I was in a naughty bookstore and I found a magazine, and I bet you I still have that magazine. There was leather sex in it, and then there was a picture of a woman kneeling with a collar and a leash on, and a look of adoration on her face as she looked up at her master. So that started it. And then there was this thing called the internet that was just becoming accessible. And I found IRC, and I found rooms in IRC, and I found people to talk to. And then I found someone that I had talked to for a long time, and she invited me to a public demo. And it just went from there. But we didn't have like a Fetlife or anything like that. IRC was the closest we could get. So what I was telling her were these things, and I'm like, you have so many more resources now, right? You have the Fetlife, some of the other platforms like Collar Me and things like that. I think they're pretty much defunct now. If I'm wrong, please reach out and let me know because I would like to know what other platforms are out there. I know that we have advertised some on the show over the years. We've had people on here to talk about different platforms over the years, but I think Fetlife is still the way to go. I was going to say Fet, but did you know on Facebook, I think it's, yeah, on Facebook, they've been advertising an app called Fet. F-E-T, not FetLife. It's a different app. And I was surprised to see that. But anyway, I haven't checked it out. I don't know what it's like. But, FetLife is out there for everybody. And the funny thing is years ago, like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, sometimes people would reach out to flirt with me from other websites and they would be kinky. They would say, "Ooh, I see in your profile that you're kinky." Well, I think I'm kinky too. And I'm like, "Well, have you tried FetLife?" And they'd be like, "No, what's that?" And then I would teach them where it was, and then they would disappear. So down the rabbit hole for them. But this person that was asking me about the different resources, I'm like, oh, there's so much out there now. There are, well, like I said, FetLife. There's podcast. Not only Erotic Awakening, which has been around for 16 and a half years, 737 shows, there are other podcasts out there that have been around for a while. There are books. There were no books when Dan and I got started, not on hetero power exchange, which is what we were. There was swinging books, there was open relationship books, there were a couple of leather books, but not what we were looking for, and now there are. Online classes, I just taught one tonight. I got 2 to teach next week. If you look on FET, there's one every night. So online classes available to anybody anywhere as long as you have an internet connection. In-person classes, so many in-person classes. You don't even have to go in your hometown. If you're nervous about people seeing you, go to another town. There are classes in all the big cities and some of the smaller ones. Retreats. I just went on an amazing retreat with a bunch of submissive people and learned so much, very fulfilling. And if you watch my news, maybe I'll be facilitating some in the future. Yeah, that's more than likely going to happen. And then some groups, well, you have tons of groups now, and we don't have to be underground, at least for the moment. And they'll have things like explorations or tapas or, little demo stations where you can try things out with vetted people. Munches. I'm outside of Chicago. There are 8 munches in the area, at least. Plus, Milwaukee's in driving distance, Madison's in driving distance, Indianapolis, some of the smaller towns. I mean, just munches so that you can meet people. And these are just gatherings of kinky people in local restaurants. We come in dressed in vanilla garb and we talk about whatever. There are sloshes, which are the same as munches, but usually take place in a bar, right? There's a possibility for drinking. Weekend conventions. I have a spreadsheet of 150 conventions and leather contests that are happening next year. Vending events. I mean, there are all kinds of ways to meet people and get information and get started. And yeah, another topic that I'm going to be doing on the show is vetting. There is so much available out there in the communities. I should be able to vet anybody that wants to play with me or come to one of my events. So many opportunities to get your face seen and become known so that people know that you're safe. Some of the stuff that I was suggesting to this person that asked me how to get started, I'm like, outside of Chicago, just in the last, let me look at my list. 1, 2, 3. Okay, the first 3 things I'm going to list were in the last week, and then there's stuff coming up. So Satyricon up in Madison had an exploration day, and I was there, and I got to do some needle work. I was going to do quills, but the person that was supposed to be teaching quills had a family emergency, so she wasn't able to make it. But there was someone there doing needles, and I needed to try that out again. And then I wanted to do it again. But there was a lot of new people there. There was someone showing CBT, cock and ball torture. There was electricity. There was wand play, WAND, literally Harry Potter wands. And how he uses them is pretty amazing. I think I mentioned that on the last podcast, and all kinds of stuff. So if you were new and in the area, you get to come in and try some things out, whether it's bottoming or topping, because the people that are there will teach you how to top as well. So we've done this for many years. When we had the Columbus space, we would have a sexploratorium like once a quarter, just so people could try it out. We have gone to adult events, like porn adult events that happen at the Columbus Convention Center. And there would be a corner that would have a dungeon set up and people could come in and try things out. So available. This stuff is just available. And then Kinky College just happened over the weekend in Chicago. I can't talk much about that because I didn't get to go this time around. I went to a submissive retreat outside of Minneapolis instead. And just so much. I know they have tapas there, which is the same as an exploration, and then all kinds of classes and gatherings and roundtables and just so many things available. I mean, you can get so overwhelmed with everything that's available. And then last week, I think it was, I went to Milwaukee's Naughties, and there was someone there teaching a class called Savage and Sensual. Great information. There's weekly munches. And like I said, then there's Fetlife. So let me open Fetlife because what I end up recommending with Fetlife, and I say open it, all I have to do is click a tab. This stays open on my laptop 24/7. And what I usually suggest to people is to create a profile, put a picture on it. It doesn't have to be your face at all. It can even be something that represents you or a piece of your body or something like that. And then you want to create a profile. Again, it can be small, but you want it to have something there. If someone reaches out to me and they don't have a profile, I just delete their message. So you want to have a little bit of a profile. And then the first thing I do is go to events. There's a tab up top that says events. And if you click that and you put in the town that you're wanting to search, and then there's these other tabs right under the town, and I will usually click educational or conference. And that is because there's a lot of stuff on FetLife right now. Some of it's not BDSM related. There are sex parties. There are other things that are just not BDSM related. Not good or bad, but if you're looking for BDSM, then you want to find the stuff that will help you out. So, Chicago, I type educational and conference. Intro to CBT, erotic photography, talk dirty to me, rope suspension, wax play, human hard points. Oh, some of these are, suspension, whips. Oh, wow, what is that? Ooh, okay, so I may have to look at that. It's an ovipositor, ovipositor. I know what it means, but kind of like monster play with egg implantation. Insect play, holy cow. Okay, so there's a lot going on in Chicago just over that's the next 3 days. Crazy. So you can absolutely find things. The trick is to take a look at the event and look for, I mean, you can jump in with both feet if you want to and do a whole weekend conference or a class on insect play or something else. Or look for the newbie nights and the orientation nights. I know AIS in Columbus used to do like 6 weeks of newbie classes. So it'd be once a week at a pizza place that had a private room, and they would go over things like terminology and what to expect at your first party and how to make friends and things like that. So they would cover some of this basic stuff because even terminology you'll need to know as you jump into this new community, this new culture. Another thing to keep in mind with the events on FetLife is that if there's separate prices for men and women, even if it says BDSM is allowed, there's a BDSM room or something like that, more than likely that's a swing event. Different, different culture at a swing event. Again, not good or bad. The question was how to start in the BDSM. BDSM does not price by man or woman or couple. It's the same price across the board per person. So that's actually one of the tricks to figure out if it's a swing event or a BDSM event. There was someone at a munch 2 weeks ago that was asking me and a friend of mine, they're like, so this BDSM event that I'm going to, it's a hotel floor, and why do I have to pay $80, but women get in for free? And we're like, whoa, not a BDSM event. That is a swing event that probably has a room for BDSM. Different, very different. Sex parties and swing parties are a different animal. So some of the upcoming events that I'm doing that if you want to get involved in BDSM, you might want to check these out. As a matter of fact, a new person that I just met, I talked her into going to Naughty Revival. And since I'm going to be there, I told her to look me up and I will show her around the dungeons and stuff like that, her and her partner. So that's going to be pretty fun. But if you'd like to meet up with me in person, have coffee, conversation, whatever, you can find me at Satyricon Vendor Fair in Madison in November, Milwaukee's Naughty Munch in November. I'll be presenting and vending. I'll be vending at the Biz Baz in Minneapolis in November. And then at Naughty Revival in Minneapolis in December, I'll be presenting. So keep up with all the places I'm presenting or vending, my online classes and intensives, and soon more to come, book news, discounts, and more via the Erotic Awakening newsletter. And get your EA shout out like Lisa in Illinois. Head over to eroticawakening.com and subscribe today. One of the other things that I wanted to mention was in BDSM, kink, all of this stuff. We talk a lot about fun. We want to have fun. We want to learn new things, meet new people, have new experiences, all this stuff. But just like any other part of our world, we also have the human condition and things that we go through because we're here. And one of those is grief. And during the submissive retreat, one of the discussions we decided to have, one of the round tables, was on grief. And each of us had something to share, and we passed around the tissues, and it was really good, deep conversation. And of course, what I brought up was my split with Dan. Lots of grief there. And I had to be reminded that grief is not just sadness, it's sadness and anger and feeling lost and all these things. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's what I'm going through. And going through it as even as I downloaded all of the podcasts for the Leather Archives, right? I mean, I was hearing our voices together and our laughter together and seeing pictures of us and just all this stuff. And it can really trigger the grief. And some people, and then I felt bad because as we're sharing, some people were sharing about sickness and death and all these things. And I'm like, okay, all right, at least that's not going on. But it doesn't make my grief any less valid. And then people were reminding me 25 years of a relationship, and now we've separated. So, of course, there's going to be grief. Tonight, I was looking for some specific podcast for some Discord members. Someone's getting ready to do a self-collaring, and I know that we have at least one episode on that. And then someone else was talking about how Lee Harrington had talked about becoming your own beloved, and I found that podcast and just some more. And it still hit me that Dan and I had done those together. So I have to, and then I'm rewriting classes for Naughty Revival that we were supposed to do together, and now I'm doing them on my own. Redoing the EA website, losing some friends. Yeah, so maybe instead of grief, I should have called it healing from grief, though, because what I do when I experience that grief is that I'll experience it, sometimes very loudly, but then I try to have a ritual of some sort, whether it's a release ritual or a bringing in ritual or something like that. And again, the submissive retreat, I ended up doing 2 rituals there, and they were very, very powerful. And during the last, wow, tomorrow it'll be 3 months since our separation. I've done a lot of ritual, a lot of ritual. Again, releasing of expectations and some other stuff, bringing in things that I need to keep moving forward, especially with all this work that I want to do and stuff like that. So, and then I have so many people that are helping me out and reaching out and helping me with my grief. And this is why I call this a community. This is why I say kink community and BDSM community. And, I've made friends here. And yeah. So that's just my little bit. I thought I would share a little bit about that. That even though I'm moving forward, that doesn't mean I'm not grieving. And so much support. So much support. And that is just phenomenal. All right. I have another question that was brought up, and I thought this one was pretty cool. And again, you're getting talking head Dawn tonight, but things will shift soon. I just waiting for opportunity. Oh, I did get my lapel mics in, so that's going to make it much easier to record other things. But the last question that was brought up, someone asked me if I knew or not. So someone recently asked me if I thought using AI was a good idea for creating scenes. And I'm like, okay, I'm not a top, so I hadn't thought of that. I have come across it in hypnosis training that I did last year up in Toronto. We were supposed to come up with some off-the-cuff things for inductions and deepeners and stuff like that. So they had trained us on some of the stuff, and then we were supposed to do it like intuitively and just come up with some off-the-cuff stuff. And there was people there on their phones asking their chat what to do. And I'm like, well, that's not fun. That's not intuitive. Why would you do that? Why would you not take the stuff that you had learned and create new things around that? And they really didn't have an answer except that's what they do. So when it comes to like BDSM scripts and scene scripts. I'm like, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just be intuitive and things like that? But I got to thinking about it. AI is here and probably here to stay, and it's a tool. So maybe it's okay, maybe not. So I asked AI to give me some pros and cons as to why or why not to use AI to create your scripts, right? Why not go to the source? So here's some of the pros that it had. It had a long list of pros, but here's some of the pros that I felt were a little relevant. It's an idea generator. Now, for me, I'd rather use the Kickstarter cards. I feel like they're much more organic and maybe more ideas. I tried to come up with an idea generator on my AI, and it seemed very basic. Blindfolds, spanking, things like that, which are okay, but there's other things that I'm interested in. So I would have to end up programming my persona on my chat so that it would know what I'm interested in. Okay. And with that, there's a con, but I'll get to that in a little bit. So, an idea generator. Sure, we get ideas from lots of places. It can give you a structure outline. Some people like warm up for 10 minutes, heavy play for 5 minutes, curve into soft play touch for 10 minutes, things like that. Some people are very analytical, and that really works for them. Okay, sure. Another pro is that it can suggest some safety thoughts with some of the kink things that you're doing. It can provide a checklist for negotiation around the kink scene that you want to do. And it can help you keep documentation of past scenes to give you ideas for in the future. 20 years ago, it would have been cool to have documented all my scenes and see all the different things that I've explored. Okay. Cons. You can't rely on its safety suggestions or lack thereof. You still need education. It may not give you all the things that you have to think about for safety, and you may not know it if you're new. So you're still going to need education. Scripts can imply consent where there isn't any. It is going to make stuff up. It doesn't know what's been consented to by the bottom. You can only find that out by talking to your bottom and negotiation. You still have to do real-time negotiation. You may miss things that you need to think about. Disabilities that may come up with heteronormative dynamics when that's not what's at play. So you still need to negotiate and communicate. Don't put anything in AI that you don't want shared. Avoid real names, right? Avoid information that could track back to who you are and who you're playing with. You wouldn't think that's a concern, and some of you are like, oh, yes, you do. You need to think about that. But the main thing that concerns me is that it's going to dull communication. It's going to dull intuition. You need to know how to read your bottom and know what questions to bring up during negotiation and have some education. You can't be new. I'm going to try to, I was going to say you can't be new. Go on there, get a script, do a scene. Sure you can. And you'll learn from that. You'll learn your mistakes. So know that there are pros like idea generator, structure outline, something like that. But there's also a lot of cons. You are still going to have to do your work. You are still going to have to be educated. You are still going to have to negotiate. You are still going to have to communicate. And as long as you know that, use AI for what you want. Remember to always check the information that's given you by AI. It is not always correct. Case in point, not a scene, but travel. I was leaving Arizona, going to Alabama, and I said, hey, AI, give me a list of bird sanctuaries. So it gave me a list of bird sanctuaries on my route. And it said, once you passed Houston and you're going into San Antonio, there will be a bird sanctuary, blah, blah, blah. Well, I had already looked at a map and I'm like, okay, I'll be going through San Antonio before I'm going through Houston. And it came back, oh, Dawn, you're right. I'm sorry. I did not, blah, blah, blah. So a simple thing as going across Texas from west to east, it had cities backwards. So imagine what it can do with a scene. No, I can't imagine. No, I can't imagine. Yeah, no. So treat a script as a menu. Look at the different options. It's not a mandate. It's something to use to activate your creativity. And then always remember that real-time consent takes priority over anything like that. So tell me what you think. Have you used AI to plan your scenes? Why or why not? Have you even thought about it? And if you've done it, how did it turn out for you? So currently I can be found at Dawn_Awakening or Erotic Awakening on Fetlife, Erotic Awakening on Instagram, EA Podcast Dawn on TikTok, because it has to be difficult, or just email me at dawn@eroticawakening.com. Be a part of the Erotic Awakening podcast community. You can become a patron of the show and get early access to the ad-free version of the podcast, a free copy of the audio polyamory toolkit, free ebooks, discounts on monthly Zoom classes, member-only Discord access, and more. Help others find us. Take a moment to support the podcast. Give us high ratings wherever you listen to the podcast, and most importantly, tell your friends about the show. And join the conversation with other listeners. Use the links from the Erotic Awakening website for our interactive Discord channel. Lots of great discussions there. Until next time, may your journey be filled with passion, joy, and a bit of naughtiness. Bye, everyone.